Hi students, in this video we are going to discuss various properties of the matter, because till now we discussed many activities. We already did some of the activities in the previous videos. Now let us discuss, or otherwise let us summarize what are the properties of different properties of the matter and the particles. Why? Because you already know every kind of matter is made up of molecules, and every molecules has certain properties. That is either the structure per unit volume, intermolecular distance, shape, volume, intermolecular forces. Let us discuss what are those properties in an enlarged manner. Now let us come to the first one. What is the structure of molecules per unit volume in a solid? The structure of molecules per unit volume in a solid. We already come to know that all the molecules are finely enlarged, means they are enrolled in a per unit volume. If you consider this is a unit volume, all the molecules are arranged like this. Means they are very closely packed. You can understand how the molecules are there beside. Means there is no gap in between the particles. Intermolecular distance is very less. Now let us come to the liquids. If you consider per unit volume, means along certain length, breadth and as well as height, same volume, but the number of particles are little bit less when compared to solids. This means certain distance is there among the particles. Means here the close packed structure and as well as a little loose packed structure is there. And if you come to the gases, even in the case of a unit volume, here less number of particles are there. Means here large quantity of the particles, little amount of the particles and as well as very less number of the particles are there. Now let us come to the second one, that is intermolecular distance. What is meaning of intermolecular distance? Inter is nothing but that between. Inter means between. Where that between? Between the particles. Means the distance between the two successive particles of any kind of matter is called intermolecular distance. See, in the case of solids, all the particles are very closely packed. This means intermolecular distance is very less. Intermolecular distance is very less. Now let us come to the liquids. Here the liquids, the particles are a little bit loosely packed. This means intermolecular distance is greater than solids but less than gases. So intermolecular distance is greater than solids whereas well as less than gases. Now come to the gases. Intermolecular distance. What about in the case of gases? Intermolecular distance is very large. Intermolecular distance is very large. Now let us come to the third one, shape. How the shape? The shape of a solid depending upon the particles. See here, all the particles are very closely packed. Because of the close packing, they have a perfect structure is there for this. There is a perfect structure is there for the case of solids. If you see the chair, bench, tables and those all, they have a perfect shape. Pen, Just if you say the word, then automatically we can remember some structure. Now come to the liquids. Because of the little bit more intermolecular distance, the shape is does not have a perfect shape, but they show the shape of container. They show the shape of container. Same in the case of gases also, they will show the shape of container only. Now comes to the volume. They have certain, when liquids also have certain volume, so the volume is existed. Even gases also have certain volume, so the volume is existed. Now let us come to the intermolecular force. What is intermolecular force? The force of attraction present among the molecules of either solids, liquids and gases is called intermolecular force. This intermolecular force is very, very high. Why? Because all the particles are closely packed, so for that intermolecular force is very, very high. Then what about in the case of liquids? This intermolecular force is less than solids but greater than liquids, greater than gases. Why it is like that? Why? Because the distance among the particles are a little bit moderate, so automatically intermolecular force is also less. Now come to the gases. Intermolecular forces are very, very less. These forces especially is called van der Waal forces. The weakest forces that present in the nature, that is among the gases, that is also called van der Waal forces. Let us discuss some of the properties. Now let us discuss mobility. What is the meaning of mobility? Movement is nothing but mobility. Various substances we can see like solids. In the solids only, chair. The chair does not move by itself. So the mobility is very less in the case of chair or bench and those all. Why? Because all the particles are closely packed. There is no gap among the particles. Intermolecular distance is very, very less. So we can say that mobility in the case of solids is very, very less. Now come to the liquids. You may have water, oil, milk. These are all general examples we know for the liquids. If you pour the liquid, then automatically the liquid will flow from one place to another place. For that sake only, liquid is a part of fluid. Why? Because gases also will flow from one place to another place. So we can say that liquids and gases are called fluids. The substances which flows is called as a fluid. But in these fluidity also, gases, the mobility of the gases is very, very high. Now what about the liquids? It is, mobility is greater than solids but less than gases. Mobility is nothing but the property of matter which able to move from one place to another place with certain amount of applied force is called as mobility. Now come to this compressibility. Compressibility, the ability of matter which reduces its volume or by increases its volume by applying certain amount of the force. For example, we have certain duster. If we apply the force, what happens? The shape of the duster is changing. Means it has an ability of compressibility. Some water is there. We can reduce that. Like that, gas is also there. If we take a syringe and apply certain amount of the force on the piston, then what happens? The air that present in the syringe will be reduced. Means we can compress it. Now, finally we can say that the ability of any kind of the matter which is reduced to its volume by applying certain amount of the force is called compressibility. Means because of the applied pressure, the particle space should reduce is called as compressibility. Now this compressibility property is very less. Why it is less? Because the distance between the particles is very less. All the particles are closely packed. So though you apply the force on a solid particle, that does not move. Now come to the gases. Sir, why you come to the gases first of all? Why? Because the distance between the particles is very high. By applying the forces, what happens? The compressibility will be very high. Then what about the case of the liquids, sir? This is the liquids is greater than solids, whereas well as it is less than gases. We can have different kinds of the liquids. If you take the duff flour, like we are going to call it as dosa pindi, whenever if you remove that duff flour with your hand, then what happens? We can observe it is flowing. Why? Because the distance between the particles is less. So we can say it is compressible. Diffusion. What is meaning of diffusion? The process of spreading molecules from one place to another. The process of spreading of molecules from one place to another is called diffusion. Various examples are there for the diffusion. Later we may discuss what are the basic properties of the diffusion in the next videos with an activity also. Right, good. Now first of all, what is meaning of diffusion? The process of spreading of the molecules. Here there is no chance in the case of solids. Why? Because all the particles are closely packed. So the process of means rate of diffusion is very less. Then what about the gases? In the gases the molecular distance is more. So we can say that it is very high. The rate of diffusion is high in the case of gases. Now in the case of liquids, it is greater than solids, whereas well as less than gases. Right. Till now we discussed various properties of solids, liquids and gases at the same time depending upon the various activities. Thank you.